everyone. Did you know that the sun bear from Southeast Asia was named after the little pattern on their chest that legend says symbolizes the rising sun? Today, I'm very excited to learn more about these omnivores that are the smallest of their species with the founder and CEO of Bornean Sun Bear Conservation Center. Good afternoon and welcome, Dr. Wong Siew Te.
Good afternoon, Julia.
I hope you're well. Happy New Year. So first off, tell us a bit about your background. What did you study and what led you to sun bears?
Okay, so I am a wildlife biologist and a tropical forest ecologist. And I used to, love animal all my life. When I was little, I keep a lot of pets. And then when I was standard one, when I was 7 years old, I always want to be an animal expert or a veterinarian. And so these two ambitions always in my early childhood, early life, and then and it slowly progressed to a point where I studied veterinary and animal science from a university in Taiwan as a diploma course at the times. And then when I was in Taiwan, I got to know bird watching, and it was the bird watching that led me to know more about wildlife, because before that, all of the animals that I work with are all pets, are all, livestock at the university. And then I think wildlife are very cool. They are so important, but yet they are very little known. And then that's the times where I feel like my dreams is actually work with the wildlife and not with livestock or pets animal. Therefore, I continue my study in wildlife biology at University of Montana in United States. And then it leads me to continue my further study into my master project, my PhD work, until I'm right now officially a wildlife biologist.
I read on your website the 4 phases it took to build the center, composed of 2 bear houses, 2 forest enclosures, an aerial walkway, and an observation platform. So the bear houses are for nighttime only, and they can roam in the forest during the day, correct?
Yes, partly correct. Yeah, most of our bears have access to the forest enclosure, and because we have more bears that we can handle, and therefore some bears need to be take turns to go out into the forest enclosure during the night, during the day, and then at night, all of the bears are encouraged to come back to the bear house to sleep there, to have dinner over there, and therefore we can keep them at night times. And the reason is for safety and management reason, because at night times, if they are out in the forest enclosure, sometimes it may not be safe. Sometimes if there's a big thunderstorm or big windstorm or big rainstorm, branches may fall, trees may fall and damage the fence, and they could potentially, as we do not want that to happen.
Yeah.
Therefore, we want them to come back.
How do you get them to come back to the bear house? You just call them over?
Training, from the beginning where we start our operations, there's always a routine. The dinner is always served at 4 o'clock sharp. So the first few years, we do a very strict routine. Every day at 4 o'clock, we will start whistle, and that has been repeating for a year or so. A year or two, until later on we do not do the whistle, but we still serve their dinner at 4 o'clock sharp. So to a point where their internal clock has been tuned to the 4 o'clock routine, dinner is served. Yeah, but once in a while we have a bear or two that refuse to come back, then we have no choice but to leave them alone in the forest, and they have to spend the night in the forest. But we still leave the door open for them to come back and have their dinner, and they will go out again.
So the center officially opened its doors to the public in early 2014. So let's talk more about the work at the sanctuary. The bears arrive usually after losing their mothers, so are now orphans. Do you receive any adult bears as well? And if yes, what's their story?
Yeah, so we do actually, at the first few years after we establish, we receive a lot of adult bears. So those bears that are already being kept as pets or being displayed as a display animals in mini zoo, crocodile farms, recreation area across Sabah. So we do receive both, and yeah, and again, yeah, and the early days we have this adult bear, and then after that, after we rescue all of the known captive bears across Sabah, and then we start to spread the words about cannot keeping sun bears as pets. People are actually breaking the laws by keeping sun bear, and after that we receive lots of informations, more and more informations about, yeah, when people come across people selling bear cups, and they would inform the authority or they would send the cups to us.
So tell us a bit about these sun bears that you are so passionate about. What is their role in the ecosystem, mainly being in tropical rainforests?
Okay, so from years of study, we know that first of all they are omnivores. They eat all kind of food, including plants, including fruits, including leaves, and then when fruits is not available, then they feed on a wide variety of invertebrates. Yeah, and their roles is actually very related to what they eat in the forest. Say, for example, if they feed on fruits, plants have a fruits is to attract animals to come and eat the fruits, but the hidden agenda is to have the animals to swallow the seed. That process is called seed dispersal. So the bears swallow the seeds, the seed will pass through their digestive tracts, few hours later come out in their feces. That process help the survival of seedlings increased. Yeah, and then beside that, when sun bear feed on earthworms, say for example, they use their claws to dig out the soil, and the process of digging the soil actually enhance the soil nutrient cycle, as well as clouding the soil, make the soil loose in order for seedlings, in order for seeds to germinate. And then sunbears is also known as honey bears. One of the very favorite food items that they love to eat are honey. They actually have to climb up to a tree, and then they excavate the tree trunk, because the stingless bee build their hive inside a hollow tree. So the process of excavating that cavities later will be used by other tree nester species like hornbills, like flying squirrels as nests. So in other words, they play important roles as what we call forest engineer. Another group of invertebrates that the sun bear love to eat are termites. In the forest, there are termites that attack live tree. So when sun bears feed on this group of termite, especially the microspherotermites, they actually control the termite population from exploding, from grown to a point where they kill many trees at one time. And then fifth roles that they play is they are food provider. When sun bear feed on termite nests or decay wood looking for beetles, beetle grubs, beetle larvae, and so on, there's always something left behind. So it will be exploited by other wildlife species. So all in all, sun bear play many important ecological roles. 5 that I mentioned just now, as seed dispersal, forest planter, as forest doctor, forest farmer, forest engineer, and seed provider, and food provider. And I'm sure there are many more that we do not know of.
As they are not very well known from the public's point of view, I want to quickly tell you facts I read online about these mammals, and if you don't mind, you could correct me or add some more info about that matter. So just to clarify, are Malayan sun bears the same as general sun bears, or are they just a subspecies? I read both, so I'm not sure which one is true.
Okay, so there's only one species of sun bear, Hylarctos malayanus, with 2 subspecies. It's a subspecies called Malayan sun bear, Hylarctos malayanus. Yeah. And then in Borneo, we have a unique subspecies of sun bear called the Bornean sun bear, Hylarctos Malayanus euryspilus. So the difference between the two subspecies is that the Bornean sun bear is only half the size of the mainland sun bear.
Wow.
So the sun bear here in Borneo is a lot smaller. How small is small? For full-grown adult male sun bears, they are about 45 to 50 kilograms. Yeah, for female, it's about 35 kilograms.
So sun bears are more active during the day, but can turn to nocturnality if humans are more present in that area. Is that true? And if it is, did this change affect their lives or habits in any way?
Yeah, so I think for all animals, including sun bears, their survival is extremely important. You know, they have to stay alive in order to pass on the genes to the next generations. If they live in a forest without humans' activities, all of them are diurnal animals, means that they're active in the daytimes and sleep in the nighttime. There's no reason for them to, active in the nighttime. However, for those bears that live in the forest with a lots of human activities, they, in order to survive, will switch their activities to avoid humans.
So when they arrive at BSBCC, the bears go through a health check and then meet other bears to eventually get released if it's possible. When do you know they are ready to be freed, and where do you release them?
For me, as a wildlife biologist, I want bears to live in the wild and not in captivity, not even at our center. So there are a few criteria that we use. First of all, a lot of the bears that we rescue as an adult, they are not releasable because they has been kept in human environment for too long. They grow up in small cages. They lack the skill of foraging to survive, to climb trees and so on. So those are not ideal, or they are not release candidates. So the potential release candidates are the cubs, the babies that we rescued, and then we nurse them. We start to bond with them, and then we walk them in the forest so that they always have connections to the forest since little. And then from that kind of experience, they develop their skill, the climbing skill, the foraging skill, to the forest. So all of these are very, very important. And then when they grow up, we know that in the wild, a bear cub would be independent when they reach adult size, like 3 to 4 years old. And the reason is because they live in a bear cubs bear world. Mom has to be there all the times to protect their cubs when they are still small. So we have to wait until they are fully grown at the age of 4 or 5. And then the next thing is, of course, the foraging skill that I mentioned just now, and also the climbing skill, the nest making skill. Over the last 7 years, we have been released 10 bears back into the forest. And then most of the bears that we release at Tabin Wildlife Reserve. Yeah, Tabin Wildlife Reserve, which is near to Lahadatu. And Tabin Wildlife Reserve is an ideal site because it is a big protected forest. So it's literally a wildlife heaven with no people in there.
So once freed, you still monitor them through collars, right? To see how they adapt, I guess. You can see their location, I
Yes.
assume. And what else can you survey? Can you know, like, if they die or are harmed in any way?
Yeah, so all of the release bears are equipped with a satellite collar, and then the collar, in theory, function for 12 months. So we have 12 months of window to monitor them until the collar drops. So the collar is programmed to drop on a certain date. But in reality, when we release the bears wear the collar, and most of the time they does not last for 12 months. Yeah, and because of their, maybe they still can have their hands to try to pull out the collars, or maybe when they become slightly skinny and the collar is easy to slip off from the neck. And then through this collar we can learn about their movements, the locations. We can control how many GPS locations that we can get in one day. Sometimes we program it for takes 4 locations in one day, every 6 hours or so. And then from these kind of successful locations that we obtain, we can know where they go, where they range, and then how much of home range eventually they settle down. And then the collar also equipped with a mortality sensor, meaning that if the collar is not moved for more than 8 hours, they would send out a mortality signal. Yeah, a signal that telling us that this collar is not moving, and it could mean two things. It could mean that the collar dropped off from the animals itself, or the animal die. Yeah, so in that case, we will dispatch a team to look for the color or to look for the animals in the forest.
So when I was younger, I really wanted to help animals and imagined it would be exactly like what your sanctuary strives to do. There are probably a lot of children who think the same. So could you run us through what a typical day is like for a caretaker of the bears?
Yeah, okay. So all of our bear caretaker or the bear keepers, they clock in at 8 o'clock, and then after 8 o'clock, start to get very busy. We breaks into a few teams. One teams will be doing the fence checking. So we have 2.5 hectares of forest enclosures, and then with a lot of fencing in between. So all of them need to be checked and surround and see to clear for any woody debris, any branches or twigs that drops on the fence. Every morning, somebody need to go and check it. And then the other groups is to like prepare the food for the bears. Feeding 45 bears, believe me, is a big operations every single morning. So when the bears are out, the keeper will start to do the cleaning. Yeah, cleaning of the dens, cleaning out the feces, the remaining food items, and so on. And then at the same times, the other group will start do the feeding of the bears. Yeah, giving the bears food. And then so the cleaning would clean up until like noon times, and then whereas the bears are in the forest again, and then noontime is rest for the keepers. Everybody have an hour and a half of rest time, and then after that, everybody go back to the work again, and then this time they will do another round of feeding, and then start to prepare the enrichment item for the bears. Make toys for the bears, and then sometimes we do like maintenance work in the bear house to make sure that everything is good and ready, and then and prepare the food for the dinner. So every day is cleaning, preparing food, feeding, make toys, and then fixing the facilities, because bears are extremely destructive. It always needs constant repairs and maintenance of the facilities in order to keep everything in good shape.
So do you have volunteers or older students help out as well?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So we always welcome volunteers, and in a matter of fact, right now I think we have more than 4,000 volunteers come and help us over the last 10 years or so. So we always recruiting volunteers. We are always in need of a lot of hands. Yeah, this center is actually built by volunteers, especially in the early days where we don't have a lot of funding to hire full-time staff. So a lot of the works are done by volunteers. And if you are interested on becoming our volunteers, first of all, you have to be 17 and above. Okay, so for you, Julia, you have to wait for 3 more years.
So as you said earlier, you have 44 rescued bear in your care and one captive born called Luna, I believe, who is absolutely adorable and my personal favorite of all the bears that I've seen on your social media. What do you plan to do with Luna? Will she ever be able to live in the wild since she was born in captivity?
Yeah, actually, she has the potential. At first, we were thinking of she might not be able to, because she was a hand-raised sun bear since she was like 8 days old. But right now, although it is slightly too early to tell, but we can see there are some potential. There are traits that, say, for example, she's very good at foraging. Her instinct is still very, very strong. When we walk her in the forest, when she smell termites, she know exactly that is food. When she see ants, exactly she know there was food, which is good thing. And then plus she have a good climbing skill. If you see some of our videos on she climb tree, just shoot up to the tree and disappear in the forest cannot be. This is what a wild bear should do, and this is what all sun bear should do in the forest. So she has the potential. And right now she's only 8 months old, and for her the next step would be like we'll try to introduce her to another group of young cubs that we rescued in the year 2020. The kid Itam, Kipaku, and Betung. Yeah, and then because the process of playing with other bears would improve their strength, would improve their skill, and then we also know that they're actually learning from each other.
So those who can't be released are given a permanent home at ESBCC. What are some examples of reasons why they can't be released?
Those bears that we rescue as an full-grown adult, we don't think they can make it. First, they are extremely dependent on human for food. And then second is that they have to have good climbing skill. Unfortunately, and also very sadly, a lot of the captive bears that was kept by people for years and years, they grew up in small cages. They grow up in small cages means that they don't got the chance to climb trees since little. So up on a tree is a very safe place to be, but they have to develop good climbing skill. Yeah, so for those bears that cannot be released back into the wild, we have to keep them. We try to use them as the ambassador for their own species to tell the people that, this is a sun bear, they are very cool, they play many important ecological roles in the forest. And then they're also a subject for us to conduct all kind of research at our center. And then potentially they can also be used as a subject for, like, say, captive breeding. They can contribute to their populations in the wild by evolving this breeding program.
So let's talk about Wildlife Wong, a book series people can purchase via your website or Amazon, Shopee, and Lazada to educate children about different animals like sun bears, of course. What are the targeted ages for these books?
Well, the targeted ages are teenage, kids to teenage. As long as any kids can start to read, they can enjoy the story. It was written in a very simple and easy to understand languages by Dr. Sarah Pai. And then all of the story features in the books are my own personal stories working with various wildlife species. We have a series of, so far, 3 books already being published: Wildlife Wong and the Sun Bears, Wildlife Wong and the Orangutans, and Wildlife Wong and the Pygmy Elephant. Yeah. And then next month, we are going to launch our 4th book, Wildlife Wong and the Bearded Pigs. There's also some exercise at the end of the book to make it more fun, to make the learning process more meaningful and more understandable.
Finally, I know that COVID has been harsh on all organizations. How has COVID affected your work at the sanctuary? Has there been any restrictions that prevented you from being able to receive or care for the bears?
Well, in terms of receive and care for the bears, there's no restrictions, because if a bear is being rescued, even during the MCO period, the movement control order period, we are considered as essential field. During the first year of the pandemic, we received 3 bear cubs. And then the only affected side, I would say, is our revenues, because since 2014, when we opened to the public, we are heavily dependent on our ticket to generate revenues to run the center. So when the tourists or the visitors stop coming because of the movement control order, Malaysia have experienced this lockdown since 18th of March 2020. So we have been working really hard to urge people to donate to our center so that we can keep our works ongoing. We have been urging the public to adopt our bears so that we can use the money to feed our bears, and hopefully none of them go hungry and things like that. And then the other things that was affected was actually the releasing of bears. We cannot cross district to other district, and then lately, since last year, there's a few times where we want to release a bears then there are positive case among our staff, and that was quite annoying. So there's always challenges in terms of doing that.
So the main threats to sun bears are habitat loss and poaching, mostly for the supposed medicinal virtues of their body parts. Tigers, sharks, and many other animals are unfortunately killed for the same reason. With all due respect to traditional medicine, sometimes wrong beliefs need to be addressed when they put critically endangered species at risk and jeopardize our own survival. You are a scientific man with years of experience in the field, so my very last question for you is, have any studies ever shown sun bears' gallbladders or any other of their body parts have any medicinal value?
Well, before I answer these questions, I want to say that right now the Western medicine are so easy to get, and it's relatively cheap. So if you are sick, go to see a doctor, go to hospital. You can use traditional plants as medicine, but don't use endangered wildlife like sun bear gallbladder as a traditional medicines to cure your illnesses. In terms of study, there are some study and it works, and but again, these are all against the laws. So don't try it, and don't even think about it, because if we continue to exploit sun bears as sun bear body parts like gallbladder as a traditional medicine, sooner or later they will all gone extinct. For my answer short, if you are sick, go see a doctor, period.
Thank you so much for taking some time to come and chat with me, Dr. Wong. I haven't had the chance to come and visit your sanctuary yet, but now everything is slowly opening again. I definitely want to pay a visit to Luna, and you, of course. Thank you for what you and your team are doing to protect our sun bears. Stay safe and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yes, do plan a visit. We are very easy to visit. If you're in Kuala Kinabalu, just hop in a flight. 30 minutes, you are here in Sanakan, and then we are about 15 minutes from the airport. Yeah, and you can enjoy the rainforest and the bears in the forest. So it's a very different experience than you see our social media versus the one that you come here. So please do come and visit.
Okay.
All right, you too. Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you for watching today's interview. Sun bears, like any other living being on this planet, deserve recognition and awareness directed towards them, because, like any other living being on this planet, they play a key role in balancing their ecosystem. So make sure to support people and organizations like BSBCC, who work so hard to make sure they have a future. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.